Everyone, I'm Tanya Rivera. Welcome back to CBSN. Florida is the latest state to ban transgender women from competing in women's sports at public high schools and colleges. This year alone, 7 other states enacted similar laws. Those states include Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Montana, South Dakota, Tennessee, and West Virginia. Idaho enacted its ban last year. Governor Ron DeSantis signed Florida's bill into law yesterday on the first day of Pride Month. The Human Rights Campaign announced plans to challenge the new law in court, saying, quote, Governor DeSantis and Florida lawmakers are legislating based on a false discriminatory premise that puts the safety and well-being of transgender children on the line. Joining us now is the president of the Human Rights Campaign, Alfonso David. Alfonso, welcome. It's great to have you with us. So give us some more insight into this new law in Florida, because it goes beyond just banning transgender athletes from women's sports. Can you tell us the full scope of the law?
Sure. Well, thank you first for having me. The bill that was signed by Governor DeSantis basically denies transgender female student athletes from participating in sports consistent with their gender identity. It would specifically require a transgender athlete to show their birth certificate before they can participate in the sport. And the underlying premise of this law is that transgender athletes achieve some type of unfair advantage in participating in sports consistent with their gender identity. There's one problem. The science does not support that theory. Every major medical association, from the American Psychological Association to the American Academy of Pediatrics, denounce these bills and reject them as having no sound basis in fact or science, which is why the Human Rights Campaign is going to be suing the state of Florida for enacting this discriminatory and dangerous law.
And, you know, some argue that these proposed bills level the playing field in sports, but Florida's bill specifies if a transgender man wants to play on a men's team, he can. It only bans transgender women from playing on a women's team. So given that, what do you think this says about the way we view trans men compared to trans women?
Well, I think this bill further identifies and highlights the discriminatory paradigm and framework that some in our country live in. It's reprehensible and disgraceful that Governor DeSantis and other anti-equality extremists are basically looking to gain political points on the backs of a community that has already been demoralized and attacked. The science does not support their theory to suggest that transgender female athletes have some competitive advantage is just not based in fact. And if they want to advance a bill that essentially discriminates against transgender people, you would think that they would be able to point to examples in their home state where transgender female athletes have achieved some competitive advantage. They haven't, because they can't. And to your earlier point, this bill does not in any way limit or bar transgender male athletes from playing on sports consistent with their gender identity. So either the legislature is unaware or uninterested in what gender identity really is, or science for that matter, or they're just simply trying to advance this bill for political points. I believe that it's a little bit of both, because these bills have been drafted by anti-equality forces who are looking to further demonize the LGBTQ community.
And like you said, they're creating this sort of cloud of suspicion around the community because, of course, now then you have these parents who suddenly believe their child might not get a fair shot if he or she competes with a transgender athlete. And as you just pointed out, there is no science to show that any transgender athlete has, an edge up over anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to those who are still suspicious, look at laws that have been on the books since the 1970s. We have had non-discrimination laws on the books in states since the 1970s, which means that transgender people have been able to participate in sports consistent with their gender identity, and they have since the 1970s. The NCAA, the Olympic Committee have all allowed transgender people to participate in sports consistent with their gender identity. So ask yourself this question: why is this now a problem in 2021? Where is the crisis? Where is the problem that we're actually trying to solve? There is no problem.
Right.
What we're seeing are
Right.
anti-equality forces that are looking to mobilize their base for an election on the backs of people that have already been vulnerable and demonized for decades. And it is reprehensible and disgraceful that they're doing that, which is why we will fight. We will continue fighting to support our community to make sure that we are protected under law like everyone else.
And Alfonso, Florida is the 9th state to sign anti-transgender legislation into law. What's being done to fight these discriminatory laws in the other states?
We're working with our coalition partners in other states to challenge these laws in other states where we believe that they also violate either the Constitution or, in some cases, federal law. We're also working to make sure that we hold these elected officials accountable. They can't believe that we're going to let them get away with this. We're going to hold them accountable at the ballot box. Each and every election cycle, we have seen that equality voters are increasing with every single election cycle. More than 70% of the voters in this country support equality. More than 70% of the voters in this country support non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people. More than 2/3 oppose these types of bills, anti-LGBTQ bills. So to all of the elected officials out there who are advancing hate and indoctrinating in division into our laws, I want to make sure they know we're going to hold them accountable, whether it be in court, whether it be at the ballot box or other means. We will use any means necessary in order to make sure that our community is indeed protected and validated and dignified under the laws of this country.
Alfonso David from the Human Rights Campaign, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.